Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debi Silber, and today's guest is Elizabeth Kipp. And Elizabeth is a health facilitator specializing in stress and chronic pain management, addiction recovery, meditation, and yoga. She's a best-selling author, certified Kundalini yoga teacher, EFT Tapping Practitioner, and Ancestral clearing practitioner, focused on helping people actualize their inherent healing. Elizabeth holds a plant science BS degree from the University of Delaware. Elizabeth is a long-time seeker of truths, spanning both the spiritual and scientific worlds. In 1982, Elizabeth's professional career ended because of a structural weakness in her lower spine. She spent the next 31 years pursuing a way to stabilize her spine and found freedom from persistent pain. Her deep connection to the spiritual world supported her through abuse as a child, multiple surgeries, decades of prescribed medications, addiction, and a long search for modalities that would help her heal. Elizabeth works to help others achieve the same healing for themselves. My next guest is Elizabeth Kipp, and if she's able to heal from her betrayal, you can too. Elizabeth is going to share the link between emotional pain and chronic physical pain. You'll see how that low back pain and other things you're struggling with may just be tied to an unhealed hurt. Here's Elizabeth. Hi, everybody. So today I have Elizabeth Kipp with me, and we're going to be talking about healing from the chronic pain and anxiety from betrayal. So we have a lot to discuss. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi there. How are you, Debbie?
Oh, I'm good. Thanks. So I'm looking forward to this conversation because, so often we're walking around in chronic pain or we're anxious and we don't necessarily tie it back to, it could be a betrayal that happened so long ago. So I'm just so fascinated by that tie. Let's explore that a little bit.
Beautiful. Let's start with the definition of chronic pain. Chronic pain is any pain that's felt, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, psychological. It doesn't matter to the brain. It all sends a signal. It hurts. So any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more is chronic. The National Institutes of Health estimates that 25% of all Americans across the board, age, socioeconomically, are in chronic pain. Mm-hmm. WHO estimates a fifth of the world population.
Wow. That's a lot of people walking around in pain.
It's a silent epidemic.
Right.
So how that hooks into betrayal is that's an emotional kind of pain. Mm-hmm. And we have an event in our life where someone betrays us, and just based on my own experience, I had a family member try and kill me many, many years ago, and I've done a lot of work around clearing there was a lot around that.
First of all, I'm so sorry. So when you say clearing that, because that will change you on many levels, I'm sure, what kind of healing did you do to heal from something like that?
Well, first of all, I had to admit that it happened. One of the things that actually happened as a result of that episode was the family just swept the whole thing under the rug. And I began to question, I was only 14. I began to question my own sanity.
So now hold on. So something as big as that, they tried to sweep it under the rug. And how did they pull that off?
By not talking about it.
And did you bring it up? Did you?
I didn't. I was traumatized. Yeah. And I was surprised that the people kind of in charge, that was their reaction. They didn't know any better, and I get that. But I'm just saying, for me, it kind of kept me frozen in shock for a really long time. And anyway,
But hold on, but I don't want to rush past that because with betrayal, there are so many different ways we move through it. There's flee and freeze, and it sounds like freeze was the response, and it was, I guess, just a survival technique for you.
Yes.
Yeah. And then and I guess over time, how did you justify it, or in your head, what were you saying to, in your own 14-year-old mind, move forward from something like that?
Well, I had a lot of issues around worthiness. So I really, at that time, I'm going to be 65 early in January. So in those days, it was easy for me to turn to pot, other recreational drugs to get away.
Right, to escape. And in a 14-year-old may be insecure and questioning their worth on a good day. So here you are trying to manage something so enormous. Did you have any support around you, or were you able to speak to anybody about what had happened?
No, it wasn't until many, many years later that I even brought it up. And I have to just also say there was a huge amount of shame around it, that something like that would happen in my family. And there was addiction, there was alcoholism surrounded it. And so there was just a lot of looking away. And that's what the culture did. That's the way the culture that I grew up in was operated.
Right. And you know what? And this may be a little more extreme than some other betrayals that many people may be familiar with. But, there's something similar about that shame, that lack of support, the fear of judgment, protecting the betrayer on some level, because I don't even know why. It's this protective thing at our own expense. So it sounds like you were doing all of that, this young 14-year-old. So, okay, so then you did whatever you felt you needed to do back those years. How did you slowly come out of it, though?
Oh, I was a chronic pain patient. That same year I had a back accident and I broke my back. I had surgery later for that, and many, many years later. And I never really healed from it. And I ended up on a lot of pain medication and anti-anxiety medication. And I ended up going to treatment to get off that medication. And went into a pain management group. And this was so interesting to me. Here I'm a scientist, and I understood that my back was sore. I got that. But I didn't know anything about the psychological realm. I hadn't had training in that. Training in plant science and biochemistry and neurophysiology, and nothing in psychology really, other than child psych. And when I went into this pain management program, we cleared the drugs. We detoxed. They detoxed me off the drugs, and that cleared some of my pain. But then I had some pain left, and it turned out that this was a big piece of it.
And how did you know that what was left over, your physical pain, what was left over with that physical pain was psychological, was due to this tremendous emotional pain?
We worked through it. I actually had a chance to speak about it. Part of the challenge with my detox was that memory kept coming back and replaying, and I couldn't stop it. And so I really literally had to go to my doctor and counselor and say, you know what, please help me with this. Right. And so I was at what you might call a sacred bottom, where I'd had enough, and I cried for help, and I got it. So I was grateful. And I also learned at that time that physical pain, emotional pain can journal over into physical pain. As I said earlier, it's all the same to the brain. If it hurts, it hurts.
And I remember the first time I heard that, it was from Dr. Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion. And I thought my head was going to fly off my body when I learned that what stress does and what that link does and how it affects us on so many levels. So now I imagine too, with that many years of trying to manage this amount of emotional pain, of course it's almost like you try to stuff yourself into a pair of pants that's too tight. It's got to go somewhere. So it was looking for a place to go. And when you finally gave it that release, it just kept coming out.
The interesting thing about chronic pain and our reaction to betrayal is the pain, the suffering, is that it creates chaos in the brain. And as I said, it doesn't really matter what the pain is, it's all the same. So if you get this chronic situation in the brain, it gets chaotic up there, and we have a negative mind anyway that keeps us in survival. Mm-hmm. When we see something new, our first reaction is no, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have then the frontal part of the brain comes in and mediates that. But the back brain, the primitive brain, makes that no first. Mm-hmm. So in chronic pain, that no becomes dominant. Mm-hmm. You can actually see the amygdala, that back brain, bigger in chronic pain patients. It's just more reactive. So we also get this negative feedback loop, which is this downward spiral. So, and oftentimes we turn that into ourselves. So we're not just mad at another person, we internalize that more. Right?
So walk me through that process. And I just want to just take that a step further, what you were talking about with the negativity bias, right? Where we're prone to the negative, and we were born this way, and this is for our survival. Like the easiest example that I remember learning was, let's say there's a stick. It's in our best interest to think it may be a snake, right? Because if it's a snake and we think it's a stick, we could die. But if it's a stick and we think it's a snake, whatever I just said, the other way, we're always better off assuming that just for our survival, there could be danger, and then we can find out, no, it's not. So it's there to protect us. But tell us, dive into that a little bit more. So when you say you understand the pain, and then we take it on as our own, what makes that switch right there?
Well, I would say judgment, what we're making it mean, and I'll just sense into the moment for a minute and give you an example of how it works in my own life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So somebody did something to me that threatened my life, that someone I loved or I thought loved me, and so I'm like, oh, I did something wrong, and I even remember in that moment, at that point, because it was so extreme, I even remember saying, "Go ahead. I'm not worth it, right? Be alive, right? That, yeah, right." And so I survived it, and then I'm like, well, she wasn't well, mm-hmm, right? So mm-hmm. I protect, mm-hmm. right? And so it's not that I'm putting a bad thing on this person. Mm-hmm. It's more like I did something wrong. I deserved it. I thing. It's very, it's a lot like ego. It's like a child who's thinking the I all the time. It's my fault. I did it. Everything kind of the egocentric personality that gets this negative spin. So there's this bias in that direction, and it takes for me. It's taken meditation and ancestral clearing, which I can share with your listeners today a little bit of, and really deepening a compassion, forgiveness, and for compassion practice too.
Yeah. So let's go there. So now you have this experience. You protect your betrayer. You take it personally. You take it on as your own. It becomes a worthiness issue for you, and then we repeat it enough times, and we start believing our own stuff. Mm-hmm. So then it sounds like you found some people who really were able to help you and support you in reframing this, maybe, and redefining it. So bring us out of it now. So now you're getting the support you need, and it's maybe not at least it's not going down that negative spiral anymore. Now it stops. And tell us what makes it go into the upward spiral.
Well, first of all, I mentioned the chaos in the brain that chronic pain brings. So the first thing you have to do is quiet the mind. You have to bring some quiet. And the fastest way to bring quiet to the mind is through meditation. Mm-hmm. It's a time when the brain actually gets to rest. And when it gets to rest, it gets to heal. It rests more in meditation than it does when we sleep. Mm. So meditation I just don't have enough good things to say about it. And I'm so grateful for all the thermography and all the films that we can do on meditators now, so we understand what's happening there.
Mm-hmm. And is there a type of meditation that's more effective than another with this type of trauma?
I think anything to quiet the mind is fine. I mean, they brought in Qigong, they brought in mindfulness, they brought in, I already was doing yoga. Anything that brings you into the present moment and helps you stay there, and you're dropping out of being attached to all these thoughts, and you're just dropping into the breath in the body. Anything that does that is going to help.
Okay. And so you started meditating, and what changes did you notice?
I noticed more peace and ease in my. I had meditated for many years, but this was different because I wasn't on medication, for one thing. Much stronger when you're not on medication. And I also...
So by getting off the medication, you're saying you had more clarity? Is that what
you have because the medication itself is adding to the chaos in the mind. So you kind of take that out of the equation. And then meditation really can quiet the mind. It's very difficult when you're adding more into the mix. So we did meditation, and I noticed the frequency of the negativity that I felt was less. The intensity of it was reduced, and the length of time between events was longer. Okay. So really, it's a perfect example of retraining the nervous system, retraining the brain to work on building a new neural net. Is what you're doing.
And it sounds like you were able to catch your breath a little bit between, let's say, those episodes of, I imagine, some real darkness.
Well, yes. And I do Kundalini yoga, which is a very powerful kind of yoga. And there's a lot of breath work there. So we learn in that practice how to use the breath consciously. And that has been, and of course, I do a lot of breath meditation. So that has been really the bridge when that negativity starts. When I drop down into the breath, that's the bridge through. That's this beautiful bridge. And if I just stay with the breath, whatever that thought pattern is in there, it'll just, if I just stay with the breath, it'll just disappear.
So would you say Kundalini yoga is a good practice then for someone trying to heal from betrayal? Would that be?
It's excellent.
Okay.
It's excellent. It's a very powerful practice. It's not the only yoga that's helpful, but it's really powerful.
Because I remember at the time I was of my betrayal, there was this yoga class I was doing once a week, and it was a hot yoga class. And I'll never forget it. It was just really about 15 minutes in, and I absolutely couldn't be there. I thought I was going to pass out, throw up. It was the most horrific thing. And I heard it was called a purge. I had no idea what was going on there. I don't even know how I made it home. I remember pulling over on the side of the road. I mean, I was in a really bad way. And as wonderful as yoga is, I guess that's not the type of yoga to do when you're...
I'm not here really for in that capacity. However, my own personal is the one yoga I would never recommend to anybody is hot yoga.
Okay.
Seriously.
It's just too intense. Is that why?
Yes. And you just really need to use the breath. You just really need to be able to use the breath when you do those movements. You just,
okay.
And you don't want to move through all those movements in a short period. I just don't understand why they would why it would be so intense. I just don't understand that. You're stressing the body, and you're supposed to be healing the body. So why would you?
Right.
Don't understand it.
I mean, it was just, for me, I was doing interval training and everything else. And I thought this was a nice, calm thing to do, but my body, I guess, was not able to handle it at all. I had never experienced that ever in a yoga class. And it was terrifying. Okay. So Kundalini yoga then would be a safer practice as far as healing from betrayal. What other types of, so meditation, yoga, what else?
We also did Qigong. That's also beautifully clearing. It's great at clearing negativity. We hold so much of this stuff in the body. Tai Chi is good. Any of these things that help us to kind of clear the body of the things we're holding on to and to calm the mind while we're doing it. These are the things we want to bring to the table. The only one we haven't mentioned is the ancestral clearing, and that is an interesting little important piece. You mentioned, we see a stick and we should, it's better for us to think of the snake. Well, you know what? That's something we come into this world with because we've been dealing with snakes for millions of years. So we come in already understanding that's a problem. Even you can look at a kitten and they have the same reaction, right? So that's something that's sitting on the gene. That's we come in with that.
Right.
Well, we come in, that would be a gift that we come in with from our ancestors. We come in with the gifts and the challenges. And some of the challenges are things like betrayal, right? So maybe we had betrayal in our lineage. And here's the interesting thing that I only found out. I did this work to clear all this stuff about 5 years ago. And in about the last 3 months, I actually found this story in my family. I didn't even realize it was there. That this happened. The person that tried to kill me saw one of their parents try and kill.
Oh, wow.
So, right. And this was a thing and I was like, what? Right.
Yeah.
So here I'm in ancestral clearing and and this is in my own lineage. And I was like, it really, I think it was maybe after you and I first talked about this subject, that came in on, oh my goodness.
Well, there are never any accidents, right? There's probably no accident why you're doing what you're doing. So just for those who aren't sure, what is ancestral clearings? Tell us a little bit about that.
So we come in, since, as I said, we come into the world with the gifts and the burdens really of our ancestors. And we've talked a little bit about those examples. And ancestral clearing is a way to, help us release some of that burden. And what we do is we bring in higher power energy to help us with forgiveness.
And how do we know? So let's say you have is it a session? Is it a one-time thing where someone would have their clearing? And
we do one-on-one sessions. I do group sessions. I do them online. I do them in live. I just, this is kind of, I've been doing it every day for 5 years.
Oh, that's so interesting. And how does someone feel? So let's say they have a lineage of all kinds of just stuff they want to clear. They come into it because do they feel that something's stuck here? Do they feel like it's an ancestral thing and that's why they would go through this, or they're just experiencing something and then they're thinking maybe it's a lineage issue?
I actually have a free prayer around betrayal that I brought in. That's an ancestral clearing prayer that I can kind of set up for the group.
Oh, I would love, yeah.
On the podcast, because this work works in the quantum field, so it works past, present, future. It's all the same, so it's effective in now. And what we would do is imagine a betrayal in your family or in your life, and the question would be, where do you feel it in your body? That's our entry point. And for me, I feel it right in my solar plexus.
Mm-hmm.
So we would start right there, and we would say, and I'll just share with you.
Yes, please.
This forgiveness prayer for relieving and releasing feelings of betrayal. Creator, Infinite One, Great Father, Holy Mother, Christ, Shiva, Higher Power, Oneness. You are known by many names, and you permeate all. You are all it is. We thank you for the countless blessings you bring to us. We ask humbly for us and our ancestors through all space, time, dimensions, realms, and lifetimes. For any time we experience betrayal in thought, word, or deed, for the times we did this to others, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and for the times we betrayed ourselves, please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all the times promises were made to us and not kept, for the times we did this to others, and for the times we weren't able to keep our promises to ourselves or others, for the times we weren't able to keep promises we made to you, Creator, and all we made it mean about ourselves, others, life, and you. Please help us to forgive one another and to forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For all the times we cried silently or aloud, how could you? Or why? Or how could you let this happen? For our feelings of powerlessness over others and over situations. For any experiences of abandonment, betrayal, and for times people just didn't come through for us the way we needed. Please help us to forgive one another and to forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For any time we experienced neglect and for whenever we neglected others. For times we were judged and for any time we judged others, please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For any time we turned our experiences of betrayal towards ourselves. For any time we lacked self-compassion, for self-hatred, and for self-sabotage. Please help us all to forgive one another and to forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. Please help us to accept life as it shows up for us. Help us to realize its blessings. Please help us to recognize each other as teachers, as companions on our soul's evolutionary path. Help us love one another and ourselves. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Amen.
Oh, Elizabeth, that's beautiful and so healing. I can really see how, I mean, I felt that. And it's interesting because at first I just said, where do I feel this? And I couldn't really nail down a specific spot. And then I felt it right in my solar plexus and my stomach too, a little bit. So, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. What do you want to make sure everyone knows before we wrap up?
Well, I like you to know that you can heal from chronic pain, and you can certainly heal from the pain of betrayal. It's not like a life sentence. And I think it's really important that you get help, right? If you're having trouble and you're hanging on and I don't know how to let go and I'm feeling resistance around it, get help. Yeah.
And I love that because, you know, we have everybody has every right to stay stuck, and you can justify it and say, but I was so wronged. And yes, that's true. But it's making you sick, and it's keeping you in so much besides the mental, emotional pain. It's keeping you in physical pain. So wonderful. So Elizabeth, where do we learn more about you? Where do we go?
Oh, I have a website at elizabeth-kipp.com. And you can, if you go there, you can find all kinds of social media. And there's I have a 40 Days of Forgiveness program that's on sale right now for $24. It's a 40-day forgiveness practice. And I do a free 50-minute introductory ancestral clearing session for people that are interested.
Oh my goodness, your phone is going to be ringing off the hook with that one. And we're going to have all of your information in the show notes. Elizabeth, I want to thank you so much because you, first of all, just it's brilliant the work that you're doing, but you are a really true example of someone who is able to transform after adversity, and you give others a beautiful just you show them what's possible for them too. So I appreciate you and the work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. Take care. Be well.
I really love that forgiveness prayer for betrayal. And as Elizabeth was reading it, I hope you took a moment to let those words sink in. If your betrayal is keeping you in physical pain, that's like getting hit twice. Your betrayal was bad enough. No reason for you to keep it lingering by being in pain. Of course, it's easy to say. As a chronic pain sufferer for years, I get it, but it's true. When you heal the emotions, the body follows. Stay in touch with Elizabeth by going to elizabeth-kipp.com, and we'll have her information in the show notes at pbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. It doesn't matter how long it takes for you to heal, as long as you begin. As Elizabeth said, it's so easy to internalize things, assuming the responsibility and protect the betrayer. But what price are you paying? Are you walking around in pain, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional? You deserve so much more than that, and you deserve to heal. So please get the support that you need. And let's start with a gift from me. Head over to pbtinstitute.com to receive my gift of How Your Biggest Crisis Reveals Your Greatest Gift. And let us support you. Go to Facebook and join our group, Women Hacking Betrayal, where we give information, tools, and support to help you move forward and heal once and for all. Can't wait to be with you next time. And here's to your breakthrough.